meeting, Gianna? Oh, I thought. All right, all right. Welcome to the meeting. All right, I think we weren't transmitting in the beginning, so I'll just say that this is the English Room Advanced Level meeting. We're here with Gianna. She said she's her first time online. And I'd like to introduce you guys to Barry too. So, hey Barry, I'm good. Yeah, that's it. That's it. So I remember the teacher was having difficulties in explaining Barry the topics in English, so I went there and started explaining him the moves in English. But he was already understanding everything without me, so I was there more to establish friendship. I thank you for coming, Barry. All right, guys. So today we're gonna have a discussion that's gonna be quite controversial because I already know your points of view are opposite. So that's what we're going to do. Important things to state before we start. There's no correct or wrong opinions. They are only opinions. Sometimes over time we discovered that our opinion was wrong and we end up changing opinions as well. So despite having difference, I like to state that those two are people who get along in the group, all right? So even if they fight here, guys, don't worry, they are not gonna kill each other. Jenna, I'd like to talk to you about your life after COVID. How is it going? Oh, all right. And what about you, Barry? How has this COVID stuff changed your life?
took good care of her. And then we flew to Singapore. And when we arrived at the airport at Singapore, we were told, and this was at the time Singapore had the most cases outside of China. When we arrived in Singapore, we were told that if we spoke against COVID, we would be arrested. And I immediately knew that it was political, because you don't arrest people for speaking against the flu or the cold or heart disease. So anyway, we continued with the Congress, and I was very happy with my dancing. And then I got back, and all the Congresses were canceled and shut down. I was really sad because Bruna Kazakevic and Mark Silva and Melissa Tamata were all supposed to be in New York in about a month, and that was canceled. And for instance, right now at this time of year, I'm usually in Sao Paulo, but the events I would normally go to in Sao Paulo were canceled. So it's changed my travel a lot, but I still continue on my life. I'm not afraid of COVID. I've got 3 good friends in the medical profession. One's a surgeon, 2 are nurses. They all tell me that COVID is terribly exaggerated, but all the people in the medical profession who feel that way know they will be fired if they speak against COVID, so they keep their mouth shut. And my best friend in the medical industry, she tells me the whole problem is the testing and the government guidelines, because as soon as anybody who's entered the hospital tests positive, they have to go in the COVID ward, and the people have to wear the protective suits. And that is, in fact, what's putting the strain on the hospitals, not the number of people who are seriously ill or dying, but the treatment regimen they have to go through to deal with the people multiplies the labor costs. So I think that this is a organized political effort to separate us all from our social groups. That's why they call it social distancing instead of medical distancing or sanitary distancing or prophylactic distancing. There's a reason they call it social distancing. They don't want us to be united. They want to divide us, keep us in our homes, and rule us. And this whole plan, in my opinion, came from Communist China. And their basic goal was to control Hong Kong and the South China Sea, which they achieved quite early on. And I think they're just happy as clams to see that the whole world followed them into this.
Excuse me for a moment. It's very interesting to hear you two talking, because with this we can see the effects of bubbles, you know? So usually we are in a bubble where everybody around us tend to support our ideas. If these people around us don't support our ideas, we usually do one of the 2 things. We move to another bubble where people support us, or we remove people from our bubble, and then we end up staying with more people that are related in opinion to us. And that's very interesting, because I had the fortune to get together here 2 people who belong to very different social groups and, let's say, bubbles, where they have very different opinions. So for one person who believes, for example, that this elephant here has an orange background, is an absurd if somebody arrives and says, no, this is blue. This is a blue background. Because it's like everybody in my social environment says that this is orange. So how could that be blue? And for a person who grew up believing that this is blue, it's very hard to accept another person who says that this is orange, right? So that's exactly what we have here. And it's very interesting, because if you put people to talk about their points of views, they're gonna see different perspectives that they were not capable of being exposed to inside their own bubbles. Like if somebody says, oh, this COVID thing is a conspiracy theory, to the people who really believe COVID, they would say, you're nuts, get out of here. And if people say, no, this COVID is very real, we should worry about it, wear masks, and arrive wearing a mask in an environment where nobody wears masks, I think they would be expelled from that environment or convinced to remove their masks. I've been exposed to both bubbles, so I usually go to a place where nobody believes COVID, and I live in a place where nobody believes COVID. My parents are from a place where everybody believes COVID is real, so I can see both worlds, and it's very crazy because usually I go to places where people don't believe COVID, I go wearing masks. Just in case, you never know. And if I talk to people who believe COVID strongly, I say, oh, but I've been there and people are there and they're not getting sick that much. And people are like, oh my gosh. And I say, what about people who take bus? Are they dying? And they're like, oh, but you're nonsense. How can you say that? So it's very crazy, especially for people like Gianna and I, who are able to work from home. The bubble of COVID is very dangerous and it's gonna kill you instantly. It's very strong because we don't get outside to see the world. And when you get, we see like, oh, people are not wearing masks. That's crazy. People are living their normal life. That's something weird. And for people like Barry, when they see somebody infected, they say, this is a real thing. People are getting sick. So how does that happen, So I'd like to hear from you, Diana, about the conspiracy theories. What do you think about it?
Well, I quite don't agree that is a conspiracy theory from China. I think that there are political facts and that COVID is using, not the COVID is using, sorry, the COVID is being used by political, and we could see this in São Paulo, right? In the elections, we got one, sorry, we got one discourse from the political authorities until the election. After election, everything changed. Did everything change? Just like that in a snap after the election, or people were holding information?
Yeah.
The thing to think. Of course, I cannot talk about China. I cannot talk about Singapore because I've never been there and I was not there, so I cannot. I think I just can say about my whereabouts. So talking about my whereabouts, I don't think it's a conspiracy theory. Like there is a disease that is being used in a political way, as I think everything is. If you stop and think, everything is political. Healthy measures are political if you do them or if you don't. So COVID is political too, because for us to do a better quarantine that would stop the virus, it would depend on political actions. So I don't think, as me and Barry already discussed a bit in the group, but now I'm very happy to have the opportunity to literally talk as two humans that listen to themselves. Because I think when we talk with message, maybe people can misunderstand the tone, And I think when we discuss, I of course I was sure that Barry was a nice person, but sometimes we can get with a lot of emotional, exactly. We can get a bit emotional, and I think for me, we already discussed it. I think in a very respectful manner, but people would get emotional with our opinions, right? So I think it's very important to talk face to face. But in my São Paulo reality, that I live in São Paulo, it's being used for political matters, but it's not like let's divide people or let's get them separated to rule them all. I really don't see this going. In Brazil, in São Paulo, where I am, I have some opinions about our president that I don't agree with. I don't agree with monitoring people, for an example, that this happened in Brazil. And I think democracy is the way to go, you know? And I don't see this happening here. Nobody's ruling anyone with COVID, and COVID is all around the world pandemic. It's not just in one place. So here I would like for us to have a more restrict to stop the cases, you know. And I think quarantine and staying in your house, it's a way to stop the cases. Why do I think that? Because I have contact with people that live, I don't, not personal contact, but I watch content of two Canadian, they are not Canadian, Brazilian that lives in Canada, and they could close everything for 1 month. And then after they closed everything for 1 month, they stopped the cases. It was a way to stop. And then they are going back, of course, because when you open your borders again, when people start traveling again, the virus walks, right? So, and now they are going back with this situation, but they are with less cases than Brazil, you know? So I would like to stay in a place that people would take it more seriously. But I know in Brazil, it's a matter of what you want to do. What I want to do is it's not that I'm going crazy. A lot of people think I'm going crazy about like, I cannot go outside my house. No, today I went outside. I saw people not wearing masks. I stayed a little bit further. It's not that I'm not going out at all, but I don't go to crowded places with everyone not wearing masks. My friends, they get together. I don't go. It's what I chose to do for me to keep safe and to keep others, actually more to keep others safe. Because I'm young, I know that thing. And I'm not I just in the risk group because I am obese, but I'm not so risk group as my grandparents, for an example. I'm not going to Christmas this year. I'm the black sheep in a way, you know, like, sorry, grandma, not going. I don't want to put you in risk. It's my conscience, you know, my conscience is working on that. If my grandma gets the virus and dies and I was there, I will feel guilty, even if it's not my fault. I know myself, so I'm not going.
All right, so now I'd like to ask a question to Barry. So, Barry, what do you have to say? I have two questions actually for you. First, what do you have to say about the numbers? Like countries where people got more social distancing, got less infected, and the numbers of cases, the numbers of deaths, are these all illusions? And the second question I have for you is, how would people get power from exploring social distancing? Because you said like, oh, this is a conspiracy theory, people are just doing this to accumulate power, but for many of us, it's not so clear how. What is the mechanism?
Well, see, let's see, if I may comment on democracy, one of my favorite quotes about democracy is Winston Churchill once said, democracy is the worst possible system of government except for all the others. I always like that. But yeah, the numbers, I talk to my friends in the medical industry and they say, of course, we're going to have higher numbers if there's more testing. And there's more testing going on. And if you remember back at the beginning of this, they said, well, what we need is a vaccine or more people to become exposed because then we will achieve herd immunity. Now that they're getting lots of people testing positive that are asymptomatic, rather than saying, oh, we've achieved herd immunity like we wanted to do a year ago, they're saying, oh no, this is terrible. And I've got a good friend who's actually a COVID administrative nurse. She's the one who decides who goes in the COVID unit and who goes into intensive care and who comes out and when. And she says they're still having more deaths from influenza and drug abuse, like methamphetamines and that kind of stuff, than from COVID. She's saying they're having great success even with the elderly who test positive for COVID, who come in with breathing problems, getting them out of the hospital alive. And she says that because the testing causes them to change their methodology to treat COVID, she thinks it's absurd, because she says if you are in respiratory distress, it doesn't matter if you have the COVID, flu, or something else that's filling your fluid with your lungs with fluid, the treatments are the same. And she also says this obsession with ventilators is unreasonable. She says if you really need to go on a ventilator, most people who go on the ventilators never get off. In other words, they're fatal. And she says the main reason that hospitals put people on ventilators is because if they die, they stop receiving the insurance money. She says if they put them on ventilators, they can keep them alive for another 5 days or a week and get more insurance money from them. And
sorry for interrupting you for a moment. Let me see if I get it straight, all right? So the herd immunity is when more than 80% of the population has already been infected, and as a group of population, the population gets immune. Is it correct?
yes, but the actual percentage, many people say that it only needs to be like 25%, because basically you need to break the chain of transmission, and you don't need 80%. I mean, if you had 80%, it'd be gone tomorrow. But as far as slowing it down and breaking the chain of transmission, many studies say you only need like 20 or 25% to achieve herd immunity.
All right, just to be clear, this is a real thing, all right, guys? I have one of my professors, he is an immunologist and he is from USP, and he was explaining this to me. So, if lots of people in the population get the disease, we have this effect called herd immunity, where our immune system as a group becomes able to fight that disease. It happens with flus and many other viruses. That's a real thing. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, something like that. Barry, and continue explaining to us now. How does this could give power to the authorities? Because you said this is a conspiracy theory, and it's not so clear to me. How would they benefit from us staying at home?
Well, for instance, when the COVID first broke last, depending on where you measure it from, October, let's say, what was going on in October? What were the headlines? The headlines were that Hong Kong was on the edge of revolution, that people were going out by the tens of thousands every day and demonstrating in the streets for political freedom and against the new government law on, they had some law restricting political freedom. And Hong Kong, every day, big, huge protests in the streets. And this had been going on at some level or another for a couple of years. And the people wanted more money, more political freedom. They wanted separation from China. 3 months later, everybody was hiding at home, hoping to be protected by the government, and all they wanted was masks. And this whole thing that's going on in the United States now, let's destroy small business and hand people checks from the government every month. There's an old name for that. It's called communism. That's the way the communists function. They don't believe in independent small business. And they believe that the money should come from the government. They believe you shouldn't own anything. And the fact that they're trying to move us from fossil fuel cars, internal combustion engine cars, which can travel 22 hours a day with no problem, into electric cars where you have to spend essentially 12 hours a day traveling and 12 hours a day charging. and the government subsidizes that. It's very obvious that they don't want us to have our traditional freedom of travel and association. And the reason they don't want us to associate it with other people is that's how you organize. That's the traditional way that people organize politically. You get together in a crowded room. Many organizations use Robert's Rules of Order. You form organizations, you pass motions, you take action. And this whole COVID thing completely suppresses that. They want us all to stay at home, separate from other people, and they are destroying small business. This is what they're telling us to do. Small businesses must stay closed, and you must stay at home and stay away from other people. That's like Adolf Hitler's dream. I mean, Pol Pot, when he moved the people from the cities into the countryside, you know what they told them before the killing fields happened in Cambodia in 1975? They told them that the wells were polluted and they would die of cholera if they stayed in the cities. This is an old communist method of
Can I make a question? Or no?
What?
Yes, sure, you can.
So you were saying that United States of America is communist? Sorry, I'm not getting it.
The leadership of the Democratic Party, no doubt about it.
Trump
This
was
is
communist.
an old tradition in the Democratic Party. It's nothing new.
No, sorry. Trump, the President Trump, communist? Is that it?
He's a Republican, okay? The Republicans are less left-winging than the Democrats, but Trump still goes along with their policies of handing out checks to people for staying at home.
So Trump is communist.
I voted for Trump, but I'm not a big Trump supporter. Communist means that the people don't own anything and that you do the job assigned for you by the government, and the government provides you with income. Those are the basic parameters of old Marxist.
I think Gianna wants to know if it's Trump or Biden. You're saying that is communist.
Because I really don't think Trump is communist, and maybe I'm not getting the idea. It's like communist actions, but he's not communist, right? You think Trump is communist?
Well, he's not a traditional Republican. Republicans don't hand out checks to everybody to stay home. That is not a Republican political.
I think so. For you, I am communist, maybe, because I agree with this handing check thing. So
okay, well,
just checking the information.
Yeah, the handing checks thing is very bad. See, what people don't understand is the basic problem here is we're destroying the capitalist system to replace it with something that we don't know what it is. And the capitalist system is the only reason that 6 billion people can survive on this planet. I'm sending personally about $1,000 a month to the Philippines to buy rice because hundreds of thousands of people are starving to death there now because of the breakdown in capitalism. Now, us people who live in the cities, who have some we have some assets, we own things, we don't see this. But the fact is, if you take the United States, which is more than half of the GNP in the world, and shut it down, even for a month, people are gonna die from that all over the world.
I gotta make a parenthesis here. I have 2 things to say. First, for me, people die of starvation because of the consumption of meat, but that's a topic for other class. And second, about the electric cars, they don't charge for 12 hours. They charge for 3 hours or 30 minutes in a fast charger. I'd like to ask
But
Diana.
how long can you drive them for at 75 miles an hour?
Oh, you can drive for 240 miles, something like that.
So like 3 hours. In other words, half the time needs to be spent charging. Whereas to fill up a car, you can drive 300 miles in a car and fill it up in 2 minutes.
I have
And
another thought, but
let's
okay.
talk about
like in the
COVID
United
yet.
States, traditionally, you can drive from Los Angeles to New York in 2 days. If we switch to electric cars, those days are over. They're gone. You know, the fact is, they don't want us to travel. They want us to stay home. They want to take care of us, print money, send us checks. And the fact is, the world didn't get this way, this good with that system. The Green Revolution, you mentioned that people die from eating, starve to death from eating meat. I understand what you're saying. You're saying that agricultural production is taken away to provide the feed for animals.
That's it.
150 years ago, everybody was riding around on horses. Most people think that was a greener time. But in fact, there was lots of agricultural forests were cut down to grow alfalfa to feed horses back in those days. Most agricultural production was to feed livestock for transportation back in those days.
Yeah, we don't need that anymore. Nowadays, we don't need the agriculture to feed for transportation. We use the same agriculture to feed for food, meat production. But Barry, I have a question to Diana now. I would like to provoke her a little. All right, Diana. So let's say let's imagine a different scenario for you now, right? You don't work online. You kept working on the same school you were, and you needed the money to survive, right? Because nobody supports you. You are independent, so you don't need anybody's money, and you need to work. And let's say this school is the other side of the town, right? So you had to take 2 buses to get there. And this bus were at 8 a.m., so they would be very crowded. Okay? Yes. You would have to take a bus, very crowded, to get to your work. And every day, during the weekend, would you stay at home or would you say, oh, I already have to take a very crowded bus every day, so I don't think it's a problem for me to go to the beach and stay with my friends? What would be your thinking? No, I'm gonna have to stay home because I need to save lives, or I'm gonna go to the beach because I already take 2 crowded buses a day, and 1 more day at the beach is not gonna make any difference.
Yeah, I'm very privileged to say that I will go to your scenario, but I probably would quit and get together with my family to find a solution. But imagine that I cannot quit.
No, you
I
have 2
to.
kids.
I don't have my family to help me.
You have 2 kids and no parents to help.
Yeah. Knock on wood, man. Knock on wood. I didn't see them for 10 months, but okay. I think I would go out in the same way I'm going out nowadays. Not getting together with a lot of people, seeing one person at a time, maybe in my house or in a with less people restaurant, with a not crowded restaurant. I would do the same. I kind of like, as I am privileged and I can stay in my house, I go out every 2 weeks and to buy groceries or do anything. But if I had to face the situation, I think, but I cannot be sure, right? I'm not in the situation, so I can't be sure. And I really don't judge people that are going out. Depending, of course, I put my opinion out, right? I say, this is my opinion about the matter. But I don't judge the character of people that does it, because if I was in the situation, I don't know if I could help the same if I could deal the same way I'm dealing right now. But I think, as I think right now, I would do the same. Go to not so crowded places, and not every weekend, like once a month, twice a month tops.
Even if you went out every day taking a crowded bus.
Because if I was taking the crowded bus, I would get asymptomatic. I could get asymptomatic, and then I would offer risk to other people. So I would try. I think I would really try to stay in my house for like go out less. I'm doing this right now. I'm going out less. That's what I'm doing. I think people should go a bit, because if you don't go out a bit, then yes, your mental health is at ease. Yeah, I have friends that I think their mental health is at ease because they are not going out at all. But I think for going to a park, an open place where the transmissions are lower, and to go out a bit, I will have to start going out every day because I have to move my body, literally. I used to dance every Friday, and before that I used to dance every day. So I kind of need to go back at the world and do a walk, go for a walk every day at least 20 minutes. So I will have to go back because I'm already almost a year in my house. But I go out to places that are with less people. And I think if I had to work, I know a lot of people that takes the crowded bus and don't go out that much, as I have friends that are going out every week. I have friends that are not going out, and I have friends that are trying the middle way, and I'm trying this way.
The
and I think I
middle
would try
path,
this way too.
as Buddha.
The middle path, yeah.
As Buddha once said, the middle path is the wise path. All right. I think that the core of this question is more like, when we eat lots of candy, is it important to eat some sweetener with the coffee or not? Should we drink sugar with the coffee if we already eat sweet? So that's the idea. I think reduction is okay. I think it helps. I don't know if I go with Barry in the conspiracy, especially related to communism, but I think there might be a conspiracy related to fear, like make people fear so they support the importance of state existence. I think this is very interesting. And as Diana said, it could change the results of elections all the time. So it's crazy. It changes also the rates of dollar and any other currency. So I think there might be something we're not seeing. It's not just a disease, because we had influenza A and we didn't have this lockdown a few years ago, and it was a very strong disease with very high infectious rates. I remember I even considered buying a car back then, because I was in the scenario that I had to take a crowded bus every day. And we didn't have this lockdown, even with influenza. We had some cases of, pneumonia and many other diseases that were considered very little in that years, and we didn't have lockdown like this. So I think there might be something we're not seeing, the big picture, And on the other hand, I also think it's important to protect the elderly. So I think the key here is that many elders are out in the bar while their nephews and their grandkids are staying locked down. And it's crazy. They should be like taking care of themselves. On the other hand, they may think like, oh, we need to enjoy life. Every minute counts. I don't know. But I think we should be protecting better our elders. I don't think this politics of, for example, these policies let's open for a reduced time. It's not intelligent, because if you open the businesses for 2 hours a day, for example, so everybody's gonna have to go there during these 2 hours.
I agree.
What you do is you put
Really
more
good.
people together, so
Yeah.
they get more infected, and then the news come and say, oh, you see, the cases of COVID have increased. And another point that I was seeing is that in the other years, the number one case of death around the world were not accidents, were not cancer and things like that. They were all respiratory disease. So if we take all these diseases together and we say they all died by COVID, we would have a result of lots of people dying of COVID and saying that this is the number one case of death. But actually, they are not spreading the other respiratory disease that have been dying. They are classifying everything as COVID, or they could be classifying everything as COVID. So it's something we need to compare. Like, oh, last year, how many people died of pneumonia? And this year, did it reduce? Because if it reduced, it's in COVID's balance, right? Last year, we had a number of people who died of lung cancer. What about this year? So we might have lots of cases of people being misclassified, they're being classified under COVID, whether they should be classified as under some respiratory disease. I don't know. It's just a thing I was exploring with my students a few days ago.
Nice.
But it's crazy to think about it. And since both of you dance, I'd like to listen from you, your opinion. Should the social dancing, schools and social dancing events, should they be occurring normally? I will start with Barry. And why?
I believe they should. I believe everything should be occurring normally. And dance is one of them. And yeah, I don't think the true impact on the people of the world from this lockdown is even being noticed yet. Because, people look around and say, oh, well, all I've got to do is stay at home and isolate and I'll be safe. And then later it'll reopen. But the problem is the lack of productivity that's occurring in the world now. It will take us decades, if not centuries, to recover from this. People don't realize it. Like I said, there's people starving in the Philippines. I'm sending rice to people there to distribute for free.
I got a doubt on the rice thing of the Philippines. Can I?
What?
What is the difference of you giving rice to Philippines and the difference between you giving rice and, of course, buying the rice for Philippines starving and a government doing that? What is the difference?
Government does not do it.
So if the government did it, it would be communism, as you were saying, right?
Well, it depends on how the leaders are selected. That communism has certain ideology. Most countries in the world today are fascists.
So why the handing? Sorry.
Fascism is a strategy to win elections. Most of them think that.
Okay, communism and fascism are different things, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But they can be together also. Fascism is just a way to win elections. You promise everybody everything and you win the election. It was invented by Mussolini. Hitler used it also.
Okay. So why the attitude of giving checks is communism? Because there are governments that were handing checks, right?
Yes, that's communist ideology.
But you are giving rice and you're not communist.
That's because my friends are starving. I'm a private person who makes his living through capitalism, freely choosing to give somebody else some of my income.
So do you consider the European countries to be communist? the ones that live in welfare states, like capitalism of welfare?
Well, they include many socialist principles, okay, but very few of them use the standard Stalinist, communist, great leader principle. Most of them use fascist methodology to conduct their elections. The parties divide up, promise everything to everybody in their little groups, and then have the elections. People don't realize that's what fascism is. It's a strategy to win elections, where you just basically promise everybody everything, everybody being the individual groups, and you wrap them together by promising them everything, and then you install the great leader at the top. They have symbols for this stuff, the fascia. You can Google fascia and click images, and you'll see the fascia. It's a bunch of pieces of straw which indicate the weak groups of people wrapped together by the fascia with either a hammerhead or an axe head on the top, which is the strong leader. And so most of the countries in Europe use a lot of communist, socialist methodology to conduct their social programs, but they have a fascist system of government. But the whole thing is actually run off of a capitalist system that's underneath. There is no economic system besides capitalism. There's just better and worse forms of it. Communism being one of the worst forms of capitalism, because it allows, in a very strict communist society, you have no choice about what you do for a living.
All right. I'd like to ask the same question to Diana now. Diana, what do you think about dancing? Would you go out to dance, and would you take dancing class?
Well, nowadays I'm just taking yoga classes online. I used to I was an intern in Locus. I'm still, but I'm not going because Locus is one of the dance academies that are closed. And Fabi and Erika, the owners, they are doing a online dancing academy nowadays, and it's very good, if I can recommend. So I'm getting through their videos. If I didn't work at night, I would go on online classes. And
No,
I'm
but
not
I
going to
mean
go.
going to face classes. Would you
No.
take face classes? Would you go to a social dancing event?
No, and I could. A lot of people are doing it, but I wouldn't. I'm not doing. I know people that are going to the balls, and I'm not going. So no.
There are some classes where people have fixed pairs. They can't exchange
Yeah, yeah.
pairs, and it's with limited space. Don't you think this kind of classes are safer than taking a crowded bus?
Yes, I think, but as I don't have a car, I would have to take the crowded bus to get there. So for me, it doesn't work. But it's. I don't think I will feel comfortable. So I prefer online classes or having my boyfriend come to my house and then I dance with him inside my house. And he's already a teacher of Samba Hockey, so I'm totally privileged. I wouldn't feel I don't need to go out to have a class. I can have a class inside my house.
All right. And one last question for you, Diana. What about the levels of infection and killing of COVID compared to other diseases? Do you think they are exaggerating it? Yes or no, and why?
I think it depends on the date. For an example, before the election in São Paulo, they were saying it was stable, and now we are having the highest number. Now we are in the yellow zone again. I think it's a new disease. We don't have a vaccine, and I will stay in my house as long as I can, and of course, trying to find the middle path. The I think it's high. I think the other diseases are still going, and I think staying in the house and transmitting less, it's better for everyone. Because, for an example, I had a friend, she was very ill, had a throat fake, very bad. And it was not COVID, it was another thing. But imagine she goes to a place where people has COVID and they are not treating themselves, or they didn't get tested, they think it's just the flu. And imagine this bacteria, meeting the COVID, and the person can be even more ill. So I think I think it's a strong disease that is killing a lot of, principal the elderly, but now and then you see someone that was healthy and strong. I had a friend, she suffered a heart attack, and this heart attack was can be attached to COVID. They didn't test because she already passed away. But I think staying inside of our houses until we have a way to fight, it's the best thing to do. And I think it will be stopped. I don't think it's a permanent thing. So as soon as the vaccine is up and people are getting vaccinated, I want to start going out normally again, taking the bus, taking the subway. I will probably next year, because of money, I will try get the subway again, and I will get less Uber, because every time I go out, I get an Uber or a 99 taxi or stuff. But I think comparing to other diseases, I think I don't want people with a disease combo, The diseases are still going, but we have a way to treat them. But there is this COVID that is not new anymore, but we don't have a way to fight it yet. So I'm kind of hoping for us to have a way to fight it. And when we have it, we are going to wait a bit for everyone to get vaccine, and then let's go back to normal, right?
All right. I think it's very wise and very responsible of you. I don't know about the conspiracy thing, but I think if you have the option of staying at home without harming your way of life, and even as you did and as I did, you are improving your way of making money, of getting freedom, and of making a living. So it's good. It end up bringing good things. So I'm really glad you could do that. I'm really glad you could adapt. Um, I myself did that. I used to give face-to-face class, and after COVID, I decided to just give online classes. So nowadays I give Zoom classes, and I am able to put people from all around the world together in one class. So I have some students who live in the United States. I have some students who live in the UK, and they come to the class and they exchange not only ideas but culture, and it's pretty good. So I'm really grateful for this. Besides being a bad thing, it brought good things. As everything in the world, it always has some bad and some positive sides, and I hope we can get out of the situation stronger than we used to be. And for Barry, just the final closing. So Barry, let me unmute you here. I'd like to just thank you for coming, and I'd like to ask you for a prediction. Do you have any prediction according to your point of view on when the vaccine will come out?
The vaccine, I really don't spend much time thinking about the vaccine. The coronavirus historically has been known for causing the common cold. And they've always told us that the cold virus was too difficult to develop a vaccine for. And the fact is, we already have herd immunity because coronavirus has caused the common cold. See, that's why you don't see people dropping dead in the streets. That's why everybody does not have this and become symptomatic. In fact, we already have herd immunity to coronavirus. But I'll never take the vaccine. I'm not worried about dying from corona. And I'm a person who travels all over the world, is in contact with many people. And just one brief comment on communism and fascism and socialism. Mussolini in the early 1900s, Marx had predicted that there would be the workers would rise up, starting in England, and the international workers of the world unite and overthrow the governments, have revolutions. And Mussolini could see that never happen. And so he came up with National Socialism. So you could have socialism country by country. And he used elections to win power, and he called that fascism. And that method of government is spread all around the world. So people who try to implement communist ideology these days don't rely on Marx's idea of the workers revolting. They rely on elections.
Yeah, it's important to state that the socialism that Barry is saying is not Marx socialism, it's another thing. All right, thank you guys for coming. I'd like to
Thank
thank
you.
everybody for watching. I hope it wasn't that difficult to keep up with this. The subject is a little difficult. And I'd like to thank you all. I miss you guys. For real. I miss you. All right.
I
So
miss you too.
I'll see you guys around and bye.
Bye
Okay,
bye. Thank
bye-bye.
you.
Thank you, Gianna.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Anderson. Bye bye.